What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to talk about the best stocks to watch this week and the important things you need to know. The stock market blasted up last week and a ton of stocks just ripped to the upside, and that came after we had a negative reading with the GDP, a interest rate hike, and mixed earnings, to say the least. We have a lot of big earnings this week too, but stocks are flying and they just exploded last week. So Tom, a lot of stocks are booming up. What's on the schedule for this week and what should we know?
Yeah, so for the schedule this week on the calendar, we actually don't have too much on the radar. So last week obviously was huge. We had the FOMC meeting come up. We had the interest rate decision. Then we had the GDP data come out the very next day. It looks like this week there's not too much going on. We do have some ISM non-manufacturing Wednesday, the JOLTS job openings Tuesday. The main thing I'm seeing, though, is really down at Friday. We have the non-farm payrolls, then the unemployment rate. So obviously be aware on Friday, but I don't think that many of these economic data points are going to matter too much here. Like you said, last week was such a big event. Stocks are still moving to the upside off of this. Like, look at Amazon. They had a great week last week with those earnings, really started flying up. That's huge for such a big stock like them. They closed up 10% Friday with that huge push up in after hours Thursday. So definitely huge moves there. We even had good news come out with the clean energy sector, Mike. FSLR, Enphase, and a few other of these clean energy stocks are flying as there was a deal reached in Congress for some funding there. So overall, these clean energy plays, I think, Mike, are some of my favorites for this week. And looking at some of these stocks going forward, like Enphase has a pretty good triple top going up here, kind of close to 288. So I'm going to be watching for some pretty big breakouts.
Yeah, these solar slash clean energy plays have been, really creeping up there. And not too many people realize it, but Enphase actually broke all-time highs on Friday. So it's kind of weird to say that because over the past year, it's been a lot of, not all-time lows, but a lot of just lows in general. So guys, definitely keep an eye on like these solar energy plays. You have companies like Enphase, which is ENPH. You also have like RUN, which is Sunrun, and then even like FSLR. So keep an eye on them. They have a lot of momentum.
Yeah, they really do. And like you said, Enphase hit all-time highs. Like you said, that's very surprising right now, especially when you look at other growth stocks like DraftKings, Zoom, even Disney, Netflix, Meta. Like all of those stocks have been down around lows recently, and Enphase has been seriously outperforming in a huge way. Like, guys, that is actually pretty big that Enphase is at all-time highs here. And what's interesting is Enphase has had some pretty good earnings reports lately. It seems like their past three reports, Mike, have really brought some positive movement into the stock, at least for a couple days. Even the one in February initially popped up before falling back off. So very good earnings reports for them. Glad to see them doing so well. But looking at the other clean energy plays like FSLR has been amazing. Even some of these other, I'm not going to call them necessarily clean energy plays, but some of these other plays like Lucid and Rivian, they kind of even had some interesting movement last week as well. Rivian held up a lot better than Lucid did, but I figured I'd mention them too because Rivian is also up at least at weekly highs here.
All right, good to know. So last week there were a ton of stocks that reported earnings. What do we have for this week?
So this week's going to be pretty big. So looking at the market here, Mike, AMD is going to be the biggest one, I think, on my radar. That's going to be a huge stock reporting this week. Then we have PayPal, Oxy on Tuesday after close. We have Uber, Caterpillar, Lucid, Under Armour, Moderna, Alibaba, AMC, Square or Block. Then we even have some mixed in down here at the bottom, like Penn Gaming, Ferrari, Starbucks. So it's going to be a huge week, Mike. I don't think it's going to be as big as last week with Google, Amazon, Apple, and all those stocks. But I will say that it's going to be a big one. AMD is my favorite. I'm also going to really eye up Oxy because these oil plays have really been booming too.
Awesome. So I'm definitely going to watch DraftKings. They report on Friday before open. It's going to be interesting as all of these earnings reports will be. But like you said, we have a lot of big names this week. Like, don't even just look at like the top row because there's like even a lot of big companies that are reporting towards the bottom, like Cloudflare, Ferrari, and a couple other ones. So again, another big week in terms of earnings. We almost always see a bunch of volatility with these stocks that report earnings. Keep in mind, buying them before earnings is like a 50-50 chance basically. But one thing that almost always happens is we almost always see an increase in like volatility with these earnings reports because we see normally a big move to the upside or the downside, just like we saw with these giant blue chips last week with Amazon and Apple and many more stocks.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at DraftKings stock here and a few other of these earnings plays on the radar, kind of like Square and Block and stocks like that, a lot of them ended the week very strongly here. You can see Square was up quite a bit. It's almost double topping at 76. DraftKings had a pretty good week too. It's really consolidating at that 13.20 support. Looks like it's going to try to maybe push up above $14 next week if we can get some nice positive momentum. So hopefully these stocks keep up. I'm really liking this setup here with DraftKings, Mike. It almost looks like a bit of like an inverse head and shoulders pattern heading into this event. You know, you can see there's the head down there with kind of like that neckline or shoulder line right there around 13.20. So looks pretty good. Hopefully we can keep getting that nice momentum. It's been a long time looking at these daily charts, Mike. DraftKings has also been in a pretty good wedge pattern lately. And we can see they're actually kind of looking like they might try to break out of this to the upside. They've actually been consolidating like right on it. So very interesting. Hopefully we keep getting this nice positive movement. And I think it's pretty primed here for a nice breakout, but it's not just DraftKings. I think a lot of these stocks on this list could end up coming back up here. Like Baba, if they have good earnings, I think could do well, and especially Square or Block.
Yeah, a lot of these stocks are at really good levels. So many stocks are very oversold, and a couple of them are looking very good in terms of just like valuations fundamentally too. So stocks are low right now, obviously, and of course, no one knows with 100% certainty on what stocks will do for the rest of the year and the next couple of years. But stocks are at some pretty good levels right now, and it's definitely not a bad time to start to slowly buy in, especially if you haven't already.
Yeah, and one big thing I'm really waiting for some of these market dynamics to change as well. Like I know in DraftKings cases, they do a little bit better in the wintertime whenever football and stuff is going on. So hopefully they can start to report some good outlooks here over the next few months. That would definitely be awesome. And a lot of market dynamics are changing with these oil companies like Oxy and different people like that too. You can see though Oxy's daily chart is honestly pretty high. They're kind of approaching up there, almost back up to those all-time highs, Mike, if they could get a big pop with earnings this week, maybe up to around 70 or something. I know Warren Buffett's still holding his position, so it's going to be interesting to see how this play ends up going out.
Right, there we go. So, Tom, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have Logitech to the upside.
Logi, yeah, go ahead and make them break out above 57.35. I think that'll be a pretty good upper level there. Keep in mind, they started really getting close to a double top last week.
All right, with the next one, we have JP Morgan, also to the upside.
Yeah, thank God we're talking about banks moving up here. Go ahead and make them break above 116.50, and that is a pretty unique double top there.
All right, and then Tom, with Microsoft, let's get some levels both to the upside and the downside, kind of like your day trades in Discord.
Yeah, definitely. So Microsoft has a pretty big level here. They hit on Friday right at close to the upside at 282. So if they break 282 to the upside, maybe look to scalp some calls there. If we see Microsoft fall down under 278, then look for a big move down. Honestly, Mike, I would not be surprised if they pulled back to the downside here, especially given that they pretty much ripped straight up for 3 or 4 days in a row last week.
Sounds good. So we're watching Logitech, JP Morgan, and Microsoft for potential day trades to the upside tomorrow. And we're also watching Microsoft for potential day trade to the downside, depending on the level that it breaks. So keep these 3 stocks on your radar. And I also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Mike C on YouTube. Huge shout out to Mike C. Thank you so much for being a giant supporter of StockedUp. And thank you so much for all of your activity in the Discord as well. Tom and I really appreciate you. But Tom, do you have any other favorite setups or anything you want to cover before we close out?
You know, there was some pretty bad news again. Unfortunately, I did see that Elon Musk was countersuing Twitter. This came out late Friday, so we're a little bit late on the news here, but I figured I'd mention it. It might make Tesla or Twitter move a little bit. I don't think it'll be groundbreaking or anything like that though, but I did figure I'd mention that. And then Biden tested positive for COVID again. So this is the second time. They're saying that there's no new symptoms. He did test positive like a week or 2 ago. Then he went a few days where he tested negative, but now he's testing positive again. So little bit strange, but he will be going back into isolation. So I figured I'd mention that as well. if that situation does worsen, then we could potentially see some big news start to roll in. But once again, I don't think that that's necessarily going to hurt the markets or anything. I'm mostly just really excited for some of these earnings, Mike. I really can't wait to see how AMD does. They had a really good week last week, started really breaking out. Looking at some of these daily charts like AMD, DraftKings, Square, and some other stocks reporting, they're starting to get some pretty good momentum here to the upside. So I'm just really hoping to see some good breakouts. And honestly, though, I'm a little bit worried because we're so overextended in the short term. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple red candles came mixed in here.
Yeah, and speaking of volatility, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below. Our bot has been doing very, very well with all of the volatility lately, and not every single play straight up explodes. We could see the GLD play from Friday was alerted at 145, and it popped all the way up to 172 at highs. That's around an 18.6% jump. Not every single play explodes up, but in general, the bot does very, very well. One of the best plays from last week was with GLD on the 27th. It was alerted at $120 each, and it popped all the way up to $249 each by the end of the day, which is around a 107% increase. But again, it doesn't win every single play, but in general, it does very, very well. If you want to try it out, you can cancel at any time. We have a coupon running. You also get access to swing plays, bonus day trades, and a bunch of other custom bots that you're not going to find anywhere else. So definitely check it out. It's been awesome with all of the volatility lately. And if you guys are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, and let's have an amazing week.